Single dad janitor revealed hidden talent. His incredible performance left 100 people in tears. In the modest confines of Lincoln High School, whispers buzzed through the hallways about the annual talent show. Excitement erupted like a wildfire, but lurking beneath the surface, a humble janitor named Mike took to his mops and brooms, unseen. A single dad at 42, Mike donned his uniform each day with pride, yet every smile he handed out was a mask for the weight of his struggles. With the pressure of bills and a teenage daughter, Ellie, to support, he often skipped meals, tightening his own belt while his heart raced for her dreams of college. On ordinary evenings, after washing up, Mike nestled onto the couch with Ellie. They shared midnight conversations that filled the tiny living room with hope. Laughter danced off the walls as they brainstormed about her future, igniting flickers of ambition that warmed their home. It was in these simple moments that the bond between them forged a love stronger than any hardship. One evening, as Ellie sang along to her favorite song, she noticed Mike softly humming. "Dad, you can sing," she exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "You should perform at the talent show." Mike chuckled nervously, brushing off the idea. But inside, self-doubt gripped him like a vice. The thought of stepping onto that stage, with parents and faculty noticing him, the janitor, terrified him. How could he expose himself to judgment, when so many only saw the uniform? The days passed, and as the talent show approached, the twinge of tension began to unravel their connection. Ellie's friends teased her about her father's dream, tossing around words steeped in prejudice that left her uneasy. She found herself standing at a crossroads, torn between loyalty and the weight of social pressure. It began to chip away at the harmony they had built, and for the first time, words between them turned sharp and laced with hurt. On the day of the talent show, his heart raced against the backdrop of a familiar fray. Gathering his courage, Mike stepped out amidst the buzzing crowd. For a fleeting moment, he felt light, but then stage fright clamped down. His first performance echoed only awkward silence before a sea of disinterested faces. It felt like a crushing wave, and as he stood there, the light began to dim on his resolve. But then, amidst the fading glimmer of hope, he closed his eyes and envisioned Ellie's smiling face. The sacrifices, their shared laughter, the dreams, everything came flooding back. Heart pounding, he reclaimed the microphone and unleashed his true spirit. A heartfelt ballad erupted from him, raw and unfiltered, resonating with every soul in the room. Each note carried the weight of sacrifice, the triumph over adversity, and the love that wrapped around them like a warm blanket. As the final chord lingered, the applause erupted like a storm, yet as he searched the crowd, his eyes were drawn to Ellie. She stood with tears glistening in her eyes, and the warmth of their bond began to radiate back. Could this performance, it felt like a healing moment, bridge the divide between them? As the lights dimmed and the echoes of vulnerability still hung in the space, Mike held his breath. Would Ellie choose to see her father's heart over fleeting judgment, or would their fragile connection crumble under the weight of peer pressure? The tension hung heavy as anticipation flooded the room, leaving everyone wondering what would come next. The applause roared, a tidal wave of sound that washed over Mike, yet he had eyes only for Ellie. The warmth in her eyes felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. He took a step towards her, confidence blossoming in his chest. But before he could reach her, he noticed the hesitant steps taken by her friends, their expressions uncertain. They had witnessed something powerful, yet how they would react left Mike's heart pounding again. "That was, wow," one of Ellie's friends exclaimed, her voice competing for attention in the thrumming atmosphere. The others nodded in hesitant agreement, caught between the weight of their earlier judgments and the sincerity of Mike's performance. Ellie's smile faltered for a moment, caught in the middle of a growing storm of emotions. Mike felt a pang of fear tighten around his heart. Would this be enough to change their minds? Or would the facade of popularity and image hold more power than the truth of his love? As the crowd began to thin, Mike wiped the sweat from his brow. Despite the acclaim, he suddenly felt starkly aware of his uniform. The image of the janitor clashed with the emotional connection he had just forged on stage. Anxiety knotted in his stomach. Would they see him for more than his job? "Dad," Ellie called out, stepping forward, her voice barely breaking through the residue of applause still vibrating through the gym. She wrapped her arms tightly around him, and he felt the warmth of her embrace sink deep into his bones. It felt like a lifeline, an acknowledgement from her that he was still the same man she loved, regardless of public perception. "I can't believe you did that," she whispered, pulling back just enough to look into his eyes. You were amazing. I wish you could always feel this way. I was terrified, Ellie, he admitted, trying to hide the tremor of emotion in his voice. I thought they'd laugh at me. I thought they didn't. She interrupted, her enthusiasm bubbling over. You showed them who you are. You showed them your heart. But even as Ellie spoke, Mike could see the shadows of doubt clouding her features. There was a hint of fear within her, a fear of being judged for supporting him. The tension was still palpable, like mist lingering after a storm. As they walked towards the exit, whispers floated through the hall. Isn't that the janitor? He shouldn't be up there. Mike's heart sank at their words slicing through the air. Ellie, he began, unsure of how to navigate this landmine of emotions. He didn't want to pull her into the hurtful opinions of others. I know, Dad, she said quietly, a hardness creeping into her tone. But maybe it doesn't matter what they think if it brings us closer? I mean, they don't see everything we've been through. Her words flickered like a fragile flame, and Mike's heart swelled with both hope and dread. There was strength in her acknowledgement, yet the worry of losing her to peer pressure loomed heavier. As they reached their car, Mike turned to her, wanting to say something comforting, something that would shield her from the judgment of others. But before he could, Ellie spoke again. What if we did this together next year? You and me. The idea felt both terrifying and exhilarating. A duet that could shatter all boundaries together, they could face judgment as a united front. Yet, a sense of dread wrapped around him. Would the weight of expectations overshadow their bond? I'll think about it, he stammered, feeling the wheels of uncertainty begin to spin in his head. As they climbed into the car, the lingering warmth of the performance faded into silence. Would their connection grow stronger through this new adventure, or would insecurities and the echoes of peer judgment tear them apart again? The questions fizzled in the air, thick with anticipation and uncertainty. What began as a simple performance had opened a door to possibilities, yet everything hung in the balance, each moment a new chapter waiting to unfold. Would they step through together, or would fear hold them back? The drive home felt heavy with unspoken thoughts, the weight between them pressing against the quiet. Mike stole glances at Ellie, her brow furrowed in concentration. She had witnessed something monumental, something that could change the course of their lives. Yet, there was an undercurrent of turmoil swirling within her that he couldn't ignore. Do you really think you want to perform again? She asked suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. Her tone was cautious, as if she were afraid of the answer. I don't know, he replied honestly, gripping the steering wheel tighter. It's one thing to do it once. But a duet? The prospect of them standing on stage together, vulnerable before an audience, sent a thrill of panic racing through him. What if it was like today? Ellie suggested, her excitement resurfacing. What if it was our chance to show everyone how we can be together? Just like you showed them who you are. He wanted to believe in that vision, in the familial bond that could shine through judgment. Yet, dread loomed. What if that bond was too fragile to withstand the pressure of expectations? It's very different when you're up there. What if I freeze up again? Dad. Ellie's voice softened. You didn't freeze. You were amazing. Everyone felt it. She looked out the window, her expression growing contemplative. I know you're the janitor, but that doesn't define you. It doesn't define us. Mike felt a warmth spread through him at her words. She was using the moment to show him her strength, but also something deeper, a maturity that both scared and impressed him. Could he really let go of the judgment that clung to him? Would they step into the light together, or would doubt drag them back into the shadows? Maybe they won't care about the titles, she continued. They might see the dad who loves his daughter and isn't afraid to show it. He imagined the crowd, faces turned towards him, skepticism mingling with curiosity. But what if they still missed the point? What if they were only there to laugh and judge? As they pulled into the driveway, the streetlights flickered on, illuminating the familiar path to their home. The comforting confines of their small house awaited them, a fortress against the outside world's harshness. He parked and turned to Ellie, ready to push the conversation aside for the moment, but something told him that was the wrong choice. Okay, let us say we do consider it, he said slowly, searching her eyes for reassurance. What would we do? I don't know the first thing about performing as a duo. Her face lit up, excitement momentarily dispelling her earlier doubts. We could pick a song. Something both of us love. We'll practice together. And, Dad, we'll have the best time. Tentatively, he felt a spark of enthusiasm ignite in him too. Perhaps it was possible. Perhaps this could be their shared adventure, a place where they could connect and heal together against a world that often seemed divided. As they stepped inside their home, a sense of peace filled the air. He grabbed his guitar absent-mindedly, its weight familiar and comforting. What would it mean to let her in on this part of himself? What could it reveal about their relationship and about him as a dad? He looked at Ellie, who was setting up her phone to play music. Could they create something beautiful out of this hesitation, out of these fears? As the first notes began to play, filling the room with unfiltered joy, he felt himself smiling. Just then, a loud knock echoed through the house, shattering their moment. Ellie shot him a look of surprise. Who is that? Mike's heart thudded as he exchanged glances with his daughter. Was it just a visitor, or something that could complicate their plans? What if it's someone from school? Ellie's voice was low, laced with uncertainty. As they approached the door, hesitation hung in the air. Would this surprise drive a wedge between them or inspire them to seize the moment? The answer awaited them just beyond the threshold. Mike's hand paused in midair, hovering before the doorknob. He could hear the muffled sounds of laughter and chatter just outside. A group of voices, familiar yet distant, stirred feelings he thought he'd buried long ago. He exchanged a quick glance with Ellie, her wide eyes reflecting a mosaic of curiosity and fear. Should we see who it is? Ellie whispered, her excitement mingling with unease. Taking a deep breath, Mike drew the door open. The hinges creaked, like the apprehension building in his chest. Standing there was a cluster of Ellie's friends, brightly colored posters and snacks in hand. Surprise! They shouted in unison. Ellie's face lit up, an explosion of joy that made everything else fade. She dashed forward, enveloping her friends in hugs. The living room filled with their chatter, a wild warmth sweeping through the house. Mike leaned against the doorframe, hesitating. He hadn't prepared for this. Hey, Mr. M. One of the kids called out, a momentarily carefree boy with tousled hair. Are you going to sing for us again? The mention of his performance pricked at Mike's heart. Could he really be that person? Before he could answer, Ellie turned to him, her enthusiasm bubbling over. Dad used to sing this amazing song. Come on, you have to show them. He felt a flush creep up his neck. Now. With all of you here? Why not? You're so good. It's a perfect time. She bounced on her toes, trusting him entirely. The room filled with a kind of energy that made the ordinary feel magical. Against that backdrop, fear nipped at his heels. What if they were only there to judge him? What if his ambition to perform again resulted in another cringeworthy moment? Swallowing his reservations, he walked further into the room. The laughter stilled as the kids turned to him with expectant faces. A fragile excitement blossomed in his chest, echoing Ellie's earlier words. All right, fine. Just one song, Mike relented, the corners of his mouth twitching upward. Ellie rushed to the speaker to connect her phone, excitement radiating off her in waves. As the music filled the air, Mike felt like a deer in headlights. The first chords of their chosen duet flowed through him, familiar and welcoming. He glanced at Ellie, who smiled bright enough to light 1,000 dark corners. She was his beacon, guiding him forward. Slowly, he began to strum, closing his eyes and letting the lyrics tumble from his lips. As his voice melded with Ellie's, harmonizing in a blend they both knew by heart, he was awash with new emotions. The kids swayed, their rapt attention a cocoon of safety around him. He felt the self-doubt peel away, layer by layer, like a snake shedding its skin. As they reached the bridge, laughter erupted again, but this time, it was joyful laughter filled with admiration. He opened his eyes, met with wide grins and nods of approval that grounded him. The song ended, and the room exploded in applause, clapping echoing off the walls. Ellie threw out her arms, laughter bursting forth as she pulled him into a hug, fueled by shared exhilaration and triumph. "That was amazing, Dad," she squealed, her eyes sparkling. But the knock at the door had opened a new door inside him too. Maybe this wasn't just about him performing for the kids. This was the beginning of something brighter. A connection born out of vulnerability, and the promise of more moments like this. Then, just as the atmosphere began to settle, the door swung open again. A tall figure stepped inside, silhouetted by the hallway light. "What is going on in here?" It was Mike's old music teacher, Mrs. Richards, her brow raised in playful curiosity. An unexpected smile spread across her face as she surveyed the cheer and applause. "Are you the one behind this surprise?" she asked, eyeing Ellie slyly. Ellie grinned, glancing up at Mike, excitement thrumming between them like a live wire. Could this new visitor bring more inspiration or another twist in their journey? Mike felt the mixture of fear and anticipation stir within him once more. "Maybe," Ellie teased, the energy in the room becoming palpable. As her words melted into laughter, Mike's heart raced. What doors were about to open? And would he be brave enough to step through them? Mrs. Richards stepped fully into the room, her presence sweeping like a warm breeze through the crowd. The children, bursting with energy, quickly surrounded her, eager to recount Mike's performance. Their voices tangled in a lively chorus, each one vying for her attention, their excited chatter blending into a joyful cacophony. "Wow, Mike! I didn't expect to find you here. I heard a commotion and thought I'd check on you," she said, her eyes twinkling. There was something in her tone that felt both comforting and intimidating. Memories of his less-than-stellar days in the classroom surged back, fluttering in Mike's chest. "Just a little father-daughter karaoke night," he said, his voice wavering as the kids pulled Mrs. Richards into their whirlwind of happiness. Ellie beamed, dragging her teacher toward Mike. "He sang. You should heard him, Mrs. Richards. It was amazing." "Ellie," he began, a nervous laugh escaping as he internally flinched at the attention being thrust upon him again. "Let us hear another one," one of the kids shouted, bouncing on their feet. "Please, Mr. M." "Yeah. Show us more," another chimed in. Feeling trapped in a whirlwind of enthusiasm, Mike's gaze drifted, searching for reprieve. But Mrs. Richards placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Mike, I always knew there was a spark in you just waiting to blaze," she said with genuine affection. "You should explore this talent more. It's a gift." A shaper look from her, one he hadn't seen in years, stirred something deep within him. The spark she mentioned began to grow from a mere flicker to a flame, trembling with the weight of potential and expectation. Could he really do this? "Maybe just one more song," he suggested hesitantly. The room erupted with cheers, as if he had thrown a pizza party instead of agreeing to sing. "I can help you," Ellie piped in, bouncing again with the enthusiasm of a child who finds a nest of puppies. He squinted at her, half amused, half worried. But there was a fire igniting inside him, he couldn't help but smile. Okay. Just one." As Ellie rushed to set up the next track, Mike noticed a few of the older kids gathered at the edge, their expressions a mix of excitement and skepticism. What surprised him most was the way they watched him, not as a past failure, but as someone daring to unveil a side he'd buried. With a focused breath, he picked up his guitar again. The first notes rang out, resonating through the room like echoes of his youth. The song, a story filled with dreams and heart, felt different this time. It was no longer just a performance. It was an offering. As he sang, the kids gathered closer, their faces transformed with delight. Even the older ones, the ones usually glued to their screens, seemed caught up in something pure, something essential to the fabric of their young lives. The laughter, the energy, it wrapped around him, pulling him deeper into the moment. When the final chord faded, silence held the room for an electrifying heartbeat before it erupted into thunderous applause. Faces shone with admiration and renewed wonder, and in that brief moment, Mike felt like he could soar. Ellie beamed at him, her joy spilling over, the genuine adoration of a daughter who saw her father not as someone defined by past failures but as a man rising to embrace his potential. Mrs. Richards leaned closer, excitement in her eyes. "I think I might know a place you could perform more often." A mixture of thrill and doubt swept through Mike. What lay beyond her suggestion? The fear of judgment still loomed, but there was something exhilarating about the possibility of what could be. Where? He asked, leaning in, pulse quickening, but before she could reply, the sound of a phone vibrating against the table cut through the air. The mood shifted as Ellie fished out her device. Wait. This looks important, she said, a frown flickering across her eager face. A hush fell over the room. Mike caught a glimpse of her screen, and his heart sank. It was a message from an unknown number, but the words seemed to weigh heavy as they hung in the air, practically vibrating with tension. Dad, it's from Mom. Ellie's voice wavered, eyes wide with uncertainty. His stomach twisted, and the laughter that had filled the room vanished in an instant. What did this message mean for their moment? As Mike's throat constricted, shadows danced across his joy, leaving a storm brewing on the horizon. What would this revelation bring? And would it reroute the journey he had just started? Ellie held the phone like it was a fragile piece of glass, tilting it just enough for Mike to catch a glimpse of her screen. His heart pounded, a steady drumbeat of anxiety. He could see a familiar name, a name filled with memories wrapped in both love and bitterness. What does it say? He managed to ask, his voice thicker than he'd intended. She hesitated, glancing at the room filled with eager faces, then back to Mike, uncertainty flickering in her brown eyes. It says she wants to meet. A week from now. Ellie's voice trembled, and the silence in the room seemed to stretch. Mike swallowed hard. The laughter, the applause, the moment of triumph he had just experienced felt like sand slipping through his fingers. What does she want, Ellie? I don't know, Dad. There was a strain in her voice. But it sounds important. The kids around them, their excitement now morphed into confusion, looked between father and daughter, sensing the shift in energy. Mike felt their eyes on him, felt their anticipation turn to unease as if they were scared of the storm brewing behind his calm facade. Maybe it's just to talk, Ellie said, her voice small. Or maybe she has decided. Her words hung in the air, unfinished, as fear crept into both their minds. Mike's chest tightened. He could feel the pressure building, a weight he thought he had shed in that moment of song. I don't want anything to change, not after tonight. Not after finally feeling like I can. He glanced toward Mrs. Richards, who watched him intently with an expression of both concern and encouragement. What if she wants to come back? Ellie's question shattered the silence, raw and fragile. What if she wants to be part of our lives again? His mind raced back to the last night he'd seen her, the hurtful words, the anger that had built like a wall between them, a wall that had taken years to construct. Ellie, Dad, you can't just ignore her. You need to at least listen. He knew she was right, but the thought of having to face his past, a past he had spent so long trying to leave behind, filled him with dread. It's just one meeting, he murmured, trying to convince himself. Maybe she is sorry. Maybe a chorus of noise from the kids jolted him back to reality. Their faces were bright with a concern they couldn't quite articulate, although the confusion behind their eyes said it all. Ellie, sensing the turmoil in her father, took a step closer. Do you want me to come with you? She asked softly, determination mixed with fear brewing beneath her surface. Mike looked down at her. This was his battle, his past wrapped in layers of hurt and healing. Yet, this moment had also forged a new path, a path that intertwined their lives in ways they hadn't realized. I want to protect you from this, he admitted, vulnerability pouring from him. You don't have to go through it alone, Dad, Ellie argued gently. He could feel the pressure of the room around them, their energy shifting from jovial to anxious. The atmosphere thickened, and Mike was torn between the memories of his past and the desire for the future he wanted for Ellie. Can we talk about this later? He finally said, glancing at the kids, their eyes wide with concern. They were waiting, hoping for the joyous father from moments ago, not the uncertain one he was right now. Yeah. Sing another song. One of the kids exclaimed, trying to bring back the lightness to the air. Mike stole another glance at Ellie, who was rooting for him, her small nod igniting the flicker of hope in him again. All right, he said, taking a deep breath. One more. He strummed the guitar, finding strength in the familiar chords, but the lurking shadows of the message clouded every note. As he started singing, he saw the faces of the kids around him light up once more. He poured everything into that song, turning his uncertainty into energy, a desperate plea for joy in a time when fear threatened to take hold. When the song ended, there was applause, but it felt different this time. This wasn't just about a performance, it was a moment clinging to the hope of the future amidst uncertainty. Asli cheered, he could see her faith in him shining bright, illuminating the dark corners where doubt lingered. But the looming question remained, could facing his past lead to a future he could truly embrace? He steadied his guitar, holding on to that flicker of hope. Did he have the courage to take that chance again? And more importantly, would he be ready for the answers when the week arrived? The days crept by, each one filled with a weight that seemed to gather on Mike's shoulders. Every time he crossed the threshold of their small but lively home, he felt the shadows of his past lurking, whispering doubts. He locked himself in his thoughts, trying to prepare for the meeting that loomed over him like a dark cloud. Ellie was the steady beacon amidst the storm. She remained upbeat, often checking in on him with supportive gestures. "Dad, it's just a conversation," she'd remind him, breaking up the tension. Each time, he wished he could absorb her innocence, her unwavering optimism. But the truth ran deeper than just a conversation. It was a confrontation with everything he had worked hard to put behind him. On the morning of the meeting, Mike stood before the mirror, battling the reflection staring back at him. He didn't recognize the haunted look in his eyes, a mixture of fear and determination. Today would reshape their lives, one way or another. He took a deep breath, adjusting the collar of his shirt, trying to give a hint of confidence that he wasn't exactly feeling. "Are you ready, Dad?" Ellie's voice brought him back to the present. She stood in the doorway, a picture of youthful resilience with her hair neatly tied back and a hopeful sparkle in her eyes. He wanted to tell her everything was fine, that he could handle whatever came next. But instead, Mike forced a smile. "Ready as I'll ever be." The drive to the cafe felt like an eternity. The air was thick with unspoken words, each bump in the road echoing his anxiety. Each passing car seemed to carry someone else's joy, their laughter a reminder of the family they used to be, whole, unbroken. Ellie reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. "You don't have to do this alone," she reminded him, filling the silence. Her warm grip felt grounding. As they arrived, Mike caught sight of the familiar figure sitting at a corner table, the very woman who had haunted his memories, both fond and painful. His heart raced. "There she is," he muttered, regret and anticipation clashing within him like thunder. "Just be honest, Dad," Ellie whispered as they stepped inside. "You owe it to yourself." Mike paused at the entrance. The casual cafe, filled with laughter and the aroma of fresh coffee, felt like another world. But there, at that table, sat his past personified, the woman who had once filled their home with love, now a stranger who bore the weight of unfulfilled dreams. "Hi, Mike," she said, her voice tender but guarded. Her eyes revealed traces of remorse, nostalgia dancing just beneath the surface. He swallowed hard, the reality of his tumultuous history suddenly crashing into him. "We didn't expect to hear from you." He felt his defenses rising, adrenaline pumping through his veins. "I know," she said softly, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. "That's why I wanted to meet. I have so much to say. I need you to hear me out for Ellie's sake." Mike caught Ellie's eyes searching his face, urging him to listen. He leaned back, crossing his arms, a protective barrier forming. "You left us once. Why should we trust you now?" Her expression fell, shadows dancing across her features. "Because I've changed. I've faced my demons. And I've realized how much I regret leaving." Ellie shifted anxiously, sensing the rising stakes around her. Mike could feel the pull of her concern. The words from earlier echoed in his mind, "You don't have to go through it alone." But could he let her walk this road with him? The conflicting emotions churned inside him, helplessness mixing with resolve. He hesitated, caught between wanting to run and yearning for closure. Would he recognize the woman who once shared his dreams? Or was she someone entirely different now? "What do you want? Really?" he asked, voice steady yet raw. She opened her mouth to reply, and for a moment, time stood still, the answer hanging in the air like a fragile promise. Would this be the moment that changes everything? As her lips parted, Mike braced himself, heart pounding with anticipation. The moment of truth had arrived, and with it, the possibility of healing or heartache loomed large. He felt Elias' hand tighten around his, holding on to hope and truth. But would they emerge on the other side? Her words trembled as they escaped her lips, hanging delicately in the air. I want to make things right, Mike. I want to be part of Elias' life again. Mike's heart sank, swirling with conflicting feelings. He had grown accustomed to being the sole protector of their little world, and now this request reshaped the very foundation they had built. He noticed Elias' wide eyes, flickering between hope and fear. She seemed to grasp the enormity of the moment better than he did. There is so much to unpack here, he said, pulling back slightly. The distance felt necessary, even if he didn't understand why. You left when we needed you the most. What makes you think it's different now? I know it's hard to believe, she replied, her voice a fragile whisper. But I've spent years regretting my choice, and I want to prove that I'm different. I want to be there for both of you. Mike wanted to scream. He felt as if a dam of emotion had burst open, threatening to drown him. Did she have any idea how much her absence had cost them? How many birthdays had passed without her, how many moments of doubt? His palm tightened around Elias' small hand, the warmth reminding him of both love and bitterness. Ellie broke the silence. Mom, we're here now. You could make a start. The vulnerability in her voice cut through him like a knife. She was giving this woman an opportunity, even if Mike wasn't ready to extend the same chance. His gaze flickered between them. I just don't want this to hurt you again, he finally said, the rawness of his emotion threatening to spill over. You have to understand, trust isn't given easily. You don't get to be back in our lives just because you feel like it now. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I don't expect you to trust me immediately, Mike. I know that I've broken your trust before. But let me show you that I've changed. I'm ready to fight for my family. In that moment, Mike wrestled with what seemed like an insurmountable gap. Could someone change so profoundly? Or was it merely a facade? But just then, he caught a glimpse of Ellie, her faith bright and burning. He couldn't ignore the strength in her conviction. What do you plan to do? He pressed, voice low but steady, perhaps looking for an inkling of sincerity. I want to be part of her life again, even if it starts small, she said. I want to make memories, be there at milestones. I'm ready to be a friend first and trust that if I keep showing up, one day you might let me be more. The cafe buzzed around them, cups clinking and conversations flowing, but within their bubble, it felt like a trench deep and uncomfortable. Could this be the change he yearned for? But what if it wasn't he? His heart battled against itself, uncertainty clashing with a flicker of hope. Ellie leaned in, nudging Mike with her shoulder. What do you think, Dad? He looked at her, that innocent trust in her expression radiating warmth. After years of guarding her heart, he realized, maybe it was time he considered taking one tiny step forward, even if it scared him. Finally, Mike met the gaze of the woman he had loved and lost. If you want a chance, then you'll have to prove it, starting with small steps. But I need time to figure this out, for both of us. A look of relief swept across her face like sunlight breaking through clouds. I'll do whatever it takes. As he released a breath he didn't realize he was holding, Mike understood that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. But change was a garden, one that needed tending. And maybe, just maybe, they could grow something beautiful together. A soft chatter erupted around them, but within the moment, it felt as though the world had paused again. Mike's heart echoed with unanswerable questions. What would the next step look like? Could they really rebuild a fractured family? But in their silence lingered a lingering uncertainty. What if this was just the beginning of repairing what they had lost? As Elias' gaze met his once more, brimming with hope, Mike took another deep breath, knowing they had stepped onto a path that could lead to joy or deeper heartache. With changes on the horizon, the real test was yet to unfold. And as they left the cafe, he couldn't shake the feeling that this decision could either lead to peace or to chaos. Only time would tell. Would they find the balance they had long been searching for? The day after the cafe encounter felt like an eternity. Mike had barely slept, the weight of the conversation replaying in his mind. Ellie, sensing his internal struggle, tried to be her usual cheerful self, but even she couldn't fully shake the uncertainty hanging over them. "Dad," Ellie said during breakfast, her spoon clinking against her bowl of cereal. "Do you think Mom will really try?" He paused, the milk flowing into the bowl like a pouring rain. "I hope so, Ellie. But it's not something we can just take at face value." The hesitation in his voice mirrored the fear in his heart. Ellie nodded, her gaze dropping. "I just want to see her to know her." "You deserve that," he said, trying to inject some confidence into his words. But the knot in his stomach tightened. Their day unfolded slowly. At work, Mike found himself distracted, thoughts drifting to the past. How Ellie had looked at her mother, with both hope and doubt. He picked up a broom, sweeping away leaves that had fallen outside the school where he worked as a janitor. Each swoosh felt like he was sweeping away pieces of his own heart. Later, as Ellie got ready for her dance class, she practiced her routine in front of the mirror. The way she spun, arms outstretched, filled the room with a liveliness that was hard to resist. Mike watched, a smile creeping on his face. "Look at you, my little dancing queen." He cheered, clapping his hands. Ellie grinned, her confidence blooming. "Do you think Mom will come to my recital?" Taking a moment, he said, "If she says she will, I believe she will try, but let us be ready for anything, okay?" "Okay," she replied, though her eyes seemed to lack some of the confidence she had shown in her dance. When they reached the studio, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Fellow parents chatted while students moved in to warm up. And then, out of nowhere, a voice floated through the crowd. "Mike?" He turned, heart racing as he came face to face with Jenna, a fellow music teacher from the school. She had a vibrant warmth that could fill a room and a knack for making any moment feel more alive. "I didn't know you had a daughter in dance class." "Yeah, Ellie loves it," he smiled, trying to suppress the anxiety creeping back. "You should come to the talent show next week. She might love to perform." Jenna said, her enthusiasm contagious. A sudden thought flashed. "Actually, maybe I could join her on stage." Jenna raised her eyebrows, intrigued. "You perform?" "It's been a while," he admitted, feeling a blend of embarrassment and excitement wash over him. "Everyone's nervous at first. But I can promise you, it's always magical when families perform together." Her voice gleamed with belief, and a spark ignited inside him. As the dance class ended, the teacher shared upcoming opportunities for parents to join their children in a showcase. Mike glanced at Ellie. "What do you think? Should I dust off my singing shoes?" Her eyes lit up, hope blooming again like a flower. "Yes. That would be amazing, Dad." He felt the warmth inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe this was a tiny step in opening up, in reaching for more. But just as he was basking in the moment, he caught sight of the entrance. There she stood, her hair catching the light like golden threads, nervousness shadowing her face. "Ellie," her voice trembled, breaking through the noise of the bustling classroom. Mike's heart pounded as his emotions surged like a crashing wave. This was it, the moment of truth. Would Ellie embrace her mother, or would he need to protect her again? As Jenna looked between them, uncertainty flickered in the air like lightning waiting for thunder. Was this a step closer to their dream life, or another painful chapter waiting to unfold? The answer hung in the balance, and Mike braced himself for whatever came next. Mike's heart raced, a cacophony of emotions echoing through him. Ellie's face transformed from joy to shock, her eyes glazed over, bouncing between disbelief and confusion. The last time Jenna had stepped through that door, she had shattered their world. The sound of the studio faded into a distant hum, leaving a heavy silence that felt all too loud. "Mom?" Ellie's voice was barely a whisper, uncertainty threading through her tone. Mike could see the flickering hope she felt battling against the weight of memories. It tugged at his heart, splitting it open with a force he hadn't anticipated. "Hi, Ellie. Can we talk?" Jenna's voice was soft but laced with a vulnerability that had him on edge. Mike clenched his fists at his sides, stepping forward instinctively. "Now isn't the time," he said, each word punctuated with a fierce protectiveness. He glanced at Ellie, her confusion deepening. "This is your recital practice, not a reunion." I know, Jenna replied, holding her hands up in defense. I just wanted to check and see how she is doing. I'd missed so much. Ellie stood frozen, caught in a moment that felt like it could shatter glass. You've been gone, she whispered, a tremor threading through her voice. I know, Jenna said again, tears glistening in her eyes, and I regret it every day. But please, understand that I'm ready to be present now. Mike felt his insides twist. He had fought so hard to create a safe space for Ellie, a bubble of love wrapped in the comforts of their old routines. The emotions churned in his stomach like a storm, and before he could quell them, he spoke. You can't just waltz back in and pretend everything is okay, Jenna. It doesn't work like that. But I want to try. I'm trying. She insisted, her voice rising slightly. I want to earn back your trust, both of you. For a moment, time froze. Mike glanced at Ellie, whose eyes shimmered with old wounds, intertwining with blossoming hope. How could he shield her from potential heartbreak when she seemed so eager to embrace this reunion? The struggle within him intensified. Could he too be brave enough to step into this uncertain future? Mom, you left, Ellie said, her voice steadying. And it hurt. You can't just take that away by saying you want to be there now. It isn't fair. I know that, Jenna said, desperation creeping into her voice. I regret it every single day. But maybe I can start making it right. Ellie hesitated, the air thick with tension. Watching her mother, Mike noticed a flicker of something. Could it have been recognition? Hope? Underneath the sadness and betrayal, there still lingered the girl who craved her mother's love. All I want to know, Ellie began slowly, is if you're serious this time. Are you really ready? Jenna stepped closer, the hesitation wrapped around her like a thick fog. Yes, sweetheart. I truly am. I've got myself together, and I want the chance to prove it slowly, in little steps. The silence stretched as Ellie absorbed her mother's words. Mike felt his heart pounding like a war drum, filled with uncertainty. Could he allow them to rebuild? Would it be worth the risk of possible disappointment? He took a breath, trying to stay grounded. What about when things get tough again? Mike pressed, his voice unyielding. Are you prepared for that? Jenna met his gaze, steady and fierce. I am. I've done the work, faced my past, and I know how important both of you are to me. I would never let you both slip away again. Ellie's breath hitched, her hope tangling with doubt and heartache. The minutes seemed to stretch, thick with tension. What do you want from us? She finally asked, her voice small yet determined. What can we expect? I want to be here for you. Take it one moment at a time. Maybe start with simple calls? I want to earn your trust again, Jenna replied, tenderness lining each word. Can we give it a shot? Mike watched Ellie as she searched deep within herself, weighing the scales of trust and past trauma. He realized this was more than just Jenna stepping forward, it was about Ellie finding her voice, her needs, her power. Okay, Ellie said quietly. But it needs to be real. She looked at Mike, and he could see she had made her choice below all the hurt that had been simmering for years. There was room for healing if they were willing to fight for it. I'll keep an open mind, but no it won't be easy, he added, tension unraveling slightly in the pit of his stomach. We've been through a lot. Jenna nodded, relief washing over her features. Together, they were taking steps towards something raw yet beautiful, a chance for a second chance. He wanted to believe they could weather the storms together. In that moment, Ellie's confidence blossomed amidst the uncertainty. She stepped closer to her mother, the distance between them closing. Can you come to my dance recital? Ellie asked tentatively, her eyes shimmering with hope and vulnerability. Of course, Jenna replied, her voice cracking. I'd love nothing more. As they stood surrounded by innocent laughter and bright hopes of children practicing together, Mike let the waves of emotion flow freely through him. Maybe together they could mend what had once seemed irreparably broken. Maybe there was a glimmer of grace hanging just out of reach, a chance to piece together the fragments of their family anew. The path ahead was uncertain, wild with potential, but for Mike, that felt like something worth striving for. Heartbeats echoed in the space as Mike locked eyes with Jenna, and in that quiet moment, they all began to weave new threads into their story, a tapestry of healing, hope, and love, and as they embraced the challenge of the future together, Mike whispered to himself, ready to rise alongside them. They would learn to embrace the stumbles, the struggles, but also the bright laughter that filled the air. He was determined to keep pursuing the good amidst the uncertainty. From a small thread of connection, they might weave a beautiful masterpiece. This was just the beginning, and out there, the world awaited them. Now was the moment. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.